So you want to see some bubble gut? So anybody who watched last week knows that we did some fun metal things here. Today, we are doing some fun male pregnancy things. So with the Tom Platz of abs passing this past month, the topic of Palumboism has brought itself back to the forefront in bodybuilding. But before we get into that, we need to really know what Palumboism first. And it's named after the great bodybuilder Dave Palumbo, who graced us with one of the biggest pregnant bellies we have ever seen. See, Dave is from the era of the small cycle bodybuilders, which many of the people on the internet seem to think these guys didn't take any gear and they look more aesthetic than every bodybuilder that's ever graced the stage since. This marvel of physique though, they had one defining feature: a big old giant pregnant bubble gut, which birthed the term Palumboism after Dave, and it basically just described the enormous food baby they were carrying around with them on stage. Now, how did this marvelous food baby develop in the early 2000s and seemingly start to disappear as time went on? Well, I don't think we have one clear answer, but I've come up with three hypotheses that seem to be common on the internet as to what causes Palumboism. But really the answer might shock you as to what really causes it in the first place. The original hypothesis behind how these fetuses were developed inside the gargantuan physiques was the emergence of recombinant HGH in the 1990s. See, GH had been around for years before this, but in the 90s it finally was put into its recombinant form where it was more readily available. The problem with this is it was extremely expensive, very hard to obtain, and the internet was in its primitive state at the time. The reason why people think that GH was causing this problem though is there was a thought that since GH raises your blood glucose, it would lead to more visceral fat gain, which then led to the protruding stomachs that we saw in the 90s and early 2000s. But what we really need to think about is, A, the cost of it meant that guys weren't running the 10 to 20 units they run nowadays, where it's readily available on the internet and you can get it from just about anywhere. Back then you had to fight tooth and nail just to get some serostim, and a lot of bodybuilders were using fake GH anyway, which we know was certifiable fat considering that Dave himself was caught in 2002 selling fake serostim to his clients while also likely using it himself. So if GH alone was the culprit, the huge doses of it being used today would lead to an even more blown out waist, which we don't really see in the Olympia. Hypothesis number 2. The secondary thought on why the GH got an explosion in Palumboism happened in the early 2000s in bodybuilding was excessive insulin use. And that decline in insulin sensitivity that happens due to this was one of the reasons for the extra visceral fat accumulation. I mean, it's true that, yeah, and there probably is a little bit of visceral fat gain from the use of HGH and insulin. Is it true that it would contribute that much to such a protrusion in the gut? I don't think so. Because you think there are diabetics in the US every day, every month, using hundreds of units of insulin, way more than the bodybuilders are, and they don't have a protruding six-pack. They have a big old Lizzo pouch out there for sure. They got a freaking nice little handle to grab on, but it's not that hard protrusion that we see in these bodybuilders. So you can see all the protrusion there on that picture of Kai and Ronnie. There's no way you're getting to that level of protrusion just from some fat on your liver. Which leads us into our third hypothesis. Fuck, 2 fingers. Which leads us into our third hypothesis.
3. Pick number 3, my lord. Oh, okay, number 3.
Now, the third hypothesis that the geniuses on the interwebs came up with was that the large cycles run at the time contributed to organ growth, which caused the blown out stomachs. Which is interesting because a lot of the same dumbasses will sit there and tell you that the physiques back then were so much better, the conditioning was better, and they didn't need to take as much gear, because a lot of guys have gone online and lied about their cycles. You had Jay Cutler and others saying they only took 500 tests and 500 EQ. And then later they'll admit they took 4 to 6 anadrol a day, which already adds up to more than what they were saying. We already know that if the blood pressure is high and the heart is likely to grow, and that excessive body weight for an extended period of time, along with the need to support all the extra nutrition coming in, is going to lead to some level of growth and development. But as Chase Irons has shown us, you can manage all of this with ancillaries and just keeping track of your health metrics, even on enormous cycles that are bigger than 90% of the people out there doing bodybuilding. Let's be honest. Chase's cycles are 5 to 6 grams, and he's trying to push his testosterone up to 20,000 nanograms. And his health metrics came back completely clean. He doesn't have the protruding gut, none of these side effects that supposedly were supposed to happen from running high doses. So it seems like the steroids themselves aren't a direct cause for the organ growth or intestinal distension. So what is likely the real reason to why all these food babies were being born 20 years ago and all of a sudden they've been aborted? Cue up the real answer. Obviously, the answer nobody wants to just point to because it's so stupidly obvious and you can't vilify it is the excessive food intake. You'd think how drastically the bodybuilding diets have changed over the last couple decades, really. People say, hey, the food didn't really change. You still use, high protein, da-da-da-da-da. Well, just think about it. How hard is it to digest an 8-ounce steak versus a big bowl of cereal? The cereal goes down like butter. You have no problem digesting that. You can eat 2 bowls of cereal easy. You're not going to sit there and pound multiple steaks in one sitting. So you couple the large portions that we're eating in bodybuilding and the frequency that we're eating them throughout the day. If you're 250 pounds or more and lean, you're eating so much steak is not even funny. Think of all the digestive stress to break down all that fat and protein, and all of it just sitting in your gut for hours at a time. That is going to lead to some gut distension for sure. You start doing that every day over months and months and months and letting your gut hang out, and yeah, you're going to have a distended look to it. 20 years ago, we just thought the more protein, the better. So you had a lot of diets, Dave specifically. You can go look his up. He talks about it numerous times on his channel. He is big on high fat, high protein cheat meals. He encourages his clients to go out to McDonald's and order fucking everything on there, essentially, once a week. There is so much fat and protein in there that it's hard to digest. So stacking up all the highly processed food, all the extra sodium leading to even more water accumulation in the gut and in the intestinal tract, yeah, it's gonna cause a lot of inflammation and the busting out of the gut. You combine that with likely more minor causes like the GH, the insulin, and the gear. They're likely to be small players in this, but you add that huge helping of food on top along with all of that, and yeah, you're gonna get the big old bubble gut. So the super physiological amounts of food needed, plus all the digestive stress going on in there, is definitely going to give you that success to build that tan 10-10 magnet bubble gut, baby. And anyone who has a hernia can tell you this same exact thing. Since all a hernia is part of your intestines poking out through the abdominal wall, you eat a big meal full of fat and protein and tell me how that feels afterwards. I have a minor one. I can tell you that thing is sticking out. You're holding a lot of water in there and it's really protruding out through there. And that's on a very, very small scale compared to all these guys with a huge bubble gut. So how do we avoid this? I mean, the easiest way is just use a modern approach. Everybody on stage nowadays is using a carb cycling approach. A, it keeps you more full in a cut in the first place, and B, it is so much easier on your digestive system. Being able to eat some fast digesting carbs that go right in, right out, and don't just hang out in your gut for 3 to 4 hours when you're stacking more food every 2 hours. By the end of the day, you have this giant backlog of food trying to get through your digestive tract. Especially the bigger you are and the more calories you take in, why not make those calories more digestible and easy to break down? Like, make no mistake, the drugs are as high as ever. They were high then, they're high now. They're more readily available now, so you can experiment with new things. They do likely contribute at some level, but not as much as people were thinking, and not as much as you'll read on the internet with all the fear-mongering articles coming from mainstream media outlets. There's been a sharp reduction in the prevalence of the bubble guts over the last 10 to 15 years. You look at these classic competitors with their tiny waists, there's no way in hell they are taking less gear than before, but coming in with better waists. It has more to do with the dietary changes over the past 30 years than the anabolics and peptides, because really they haven't changed that much in the last 30 years. At least not what the top guys are using. Sure, you have your little SARM gobbies, but honestly, they all weigh like 150 pounds anyway, so not much to worry about there. But what you should worry about is liking and subscribing. Do it right now. And if you like tan 10-10s like Lenny did, let me know down below, because we will make more videos like this if you let me know what you'd like, no matter how twisted it is. Also, check out my description if you're interested in coaching or just want to see more content like this. I do shorts on my Instagram. That is linked down below, along with our group coaching Discord that is made with Coach Colton. I'm sure some of you follow him on here also. Him and I have a Discord together along with his coach Adam, where we answer any questions you guys have regarding bodybuilding, give us content ideas. We'll make more stuff that you guys want to see. Just let us know. It's there for fun. And if you subscribe to Tier 2, you will find out how to grow your own GH gut by sourcing the proper materials to make it happen.